Mm, Today we're gonna see what the shuffle has for us. You know, it's always a good surprise. Just give me a second. Okay, cool. That the nights were mainly made for saying things that you can't say tomorrow day. Crawling back to you. Never thought of calling when you've had a few. Okay, let's see. Bro, my fucking jam. Did I listen to the song yesterday? I did listen to the song yesterday. I don't wanna be a cigarette. My freaking shuffle knows me, man. Okay, I listened to this yesterday. I love the Civil Wars, bro. I love the Civil Wars, bro. And it's so much fun to sing this song, bro. Having you notice me drifting. Oh, let me tell you I am. Tell me it's nothing. Bro. Then I'm not drowning. Oh, let me tell you I am. Please tell me you know I've got to let you go. I can't help falling out of love with you. How old was I when I first discovered the Civil Wars? I think I was maybe like 13. Why am I feeling so guilty? Why am I holding my breath? I was supposed to be smoking. Give me a second. Try to convince me that I'm not drowning. Oh, let me tell you I am. Please tell me you know. Bro, I fucking love the Civil Wars. Won't you read my mind? Don't you make me and oh, please tell me you know. I don't even like singing in this key. I don't know why I'm singing in this key. It just fits with the song, I guess. I don't even know how to sing. I just sing. I can't even sing half the time. But half the time I can. It's kind of fun. It's crazy. With you. What else they got for me? No.
Chance the motherfucking rapper
Sorry, I'm deleting this song.
with a capitalized times.
Give me a second.
Chance, am I the only nigga still care about mixtape?
See you later.
You don't want zero?
No. Stop. 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 I don't want to listen to this. Listen to this. Okay. Okay.
Something that you're doing
There
has
we
me
go.
falling all the way. I'm tripping off your loving, all the other drugs we taking. Over all the others, you're the one all over me. I need your therapy, need your therapy. I don't mean to come off aggressive, no. I'm just here to pass off the message, yeah. Cause you were in my head when I thought I lost my mind, but we do this every time. Cause there's something that you're doing has me falling all the way. I'm tripping off your loving, all the other drugs we taking. Over all the others, you're the one all over me. I need your therapy, need your therapy. I'm not one for relationships, it's overrated. We could still be lovers, that's all I'm saying. And over all the others, you're the one all over me. I need your therapy, need your therapy. I'm feeling off you, la 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 la. I'm needing you, la 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 la. I'm feeling off you, la 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 la. I'm needing you, la 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 la. I hope I made the impression, yeah, that I was always interested. All the feelings I kept in. Oh, what should we do? Whatever you want to. Cause there's something that you're doing has me falling all the way. I'm tripping off your loving, all the other drugs we taking. Over all the others, you're the one all over me. I need your therapy, need your therapy. I'm not one for relationships, it's overrated. We could still be lovers, that's all I'm saying. And over all the others, you're the one all over me. I need your therapy, need your therapy. I'm feeding off you, la 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 la. I'm needing you, la 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 la. I'm feeding off you, la 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 la. I'm needing you, la 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 la.
Okay, bro. I keep getting sidetracked by singing. I'm literally like dancing to the song and singing at the same time when I'm supposed to be doing something completely different. But who doesn't love a good song, man? Okay, uno más. This is one where I'm not gonna sing. Thank you, but I'll listen to it because it's a good song. Bro, I'm sorry, hold on. Fuck. Fuck. Look at this terrible, terrible stat. I'm actually embarrassed. 211 tries, not a single freaking win. What is wrong with me? The game is hard, bro. That's all I have to say. I know this shit is loud as fuck. Hold on. But yeah, we're watching Ram Dass again. This one is called Embracing Our Humanity.
If this were around here, could you hear me? Can you hear me better this way? I was afraid of that. Okay. Well, good evening and happy birthday to the Transpersonal Psychology Association. I can't believe it's 10 years old. It seems like I just remember it beginning. But as you get older, it goes faster. Some of you may have noticed. I tried to think about the last 10 years, but I can hardly remember yesterday. When that first started to happen, I wondered whether I had taken too many drugs. But then I noticed that when I needed something, it was there. And so I started to trust this state of not thinking at all. Just kind of an empty mind, out of which something comes and you just get to trust it. And the predicament is that as you let go of personal history at the instruction of Don Juan, it's hard to remember the past 10 years. As each moment becomes richer and more thick with meaning, then and then in both directions starts to use the power.
She just kicked the shit out of him.
You can have plans and have memories, but they don't seem to have the same pull. A couple of years ago, I found I had been moving these boxes of memorabilia with me everywhere I went. I'm sure you all have an attic or a cellar. It's those things that you would keep in your attic or cellar I had in boxes. And I would pay UPS to move them every time I would move. And when you're a wandering sadhu with a whole UPS fleet behind you, it's quite a trip. And I noticed that I never opened the boxes, I just kept adding to them. And I assumed what it was about was that I was waiting for the time when I would run out of the present moment, in which case I could revel in the past. But the problem was that I was getting to be able to be fulfilled in the present moment by less and less, till I could just sit in an empty room and be happy. So I wasn't sure that I could justify this UPS bill. But there were old love letters and important memorabilia of the 60s, things you must hold on to. pictures of people you'd never see again, my bar mitzvah certificate that said I was a man. I mean, not things to be taken lightly, I'll tell you. So I decided to have a big fire and burn them all. And I did. And I started out laughing, but by the second day, it was really starting to get to me, and I was... See, first I wasn't going to burn them, I was going to throw them away, but I found myself during the night going out to the garbage pail because I couldn't bear to get rid of one picture of, you know. And my guru had said it's good to burn bodies because then the beings don't keep wanting to come back to them. So I thought it was good to burn that personal history. But the cop-out was that it turned out somebody was doing a movie of me those 2 days, so it's all on film. It's like microfilming your history, except it's his film, not mine. So now my karma is his, and I'm free. That's the way I look at it. I don't ever have to look at it again. Dave McClelland, who was my boss at Harvard, who actually fired me. We've remained good friends over these many years, and he is convinced I haven't changed at all, which is extremely discouraging since he's a social psychologist and I've been working my butt off for all these years trying to change. And he says, "You're the same as you always were, you know." I figure, what does he know? But I have changed inside. And I think about it, and I think that the only way I can justify this business that I'm in of speaking to people like this as part of my role is I'm not an enlightened being. I am at some level, but I'm not fully consciously an enlightened being. But I'm sort of a mouth for a process that a lot of us are sharing. Some of us came into it at one moment, and some of us came into it another moment, some in one way and some in another. But I really just say things, talk about changes that are going on that I think that most of you will find very familiar.
One segundo. I have to fix something. Hello, Ator. How art thou?
Made a promise to my mama that I'll bless her with some grandkids. She spoil them, but till then I'm getting dollars. I'm just doing what I gotta. Can a man live? And it's all day. I'm a god, get a whole squad a job, get them all paid. Came a long way from all state, yeah. Now we all American. Shit, we all American. Yeah, I swear to God, I put the hero in heroin. These flows, kilos. I can sell snow to a ski slope. I can sell evil to the devil, non-believers to a temple. Shit, I can sell water to a speedboat. And these eyes is iconic. I went pro, made profit. Now I keep some dead faces in my pocket, getting faded. I've been stoned all week. But what's a guy without a little OD? Just twisting my weed, easing my mind. Why you worry about me? Stop tripping, I'm fine. Swear these bitches done lost it lately. You put the whole in honest, baby. So complicated. And I may be a little arrogant, I'm aware of it, I know. I got a problem, I'ma take care of it. Weight I'm carrying, gotta let it go. It won't hold me down no more. Made a promise to my mama that I'll bless her with some grandkids. She can spoil them, but till then I'm getting dollars. I'm just doing what I gotta. Can a man live? And it's all day. I'm a god, get a whole squad a job, get them all paid. Came a long way from all state, yeah. Now we all American. Shit, we all American. Show me down.
Going nowhere, we ain't going nowhere. We can't be stopped now, 'cause this rap shit for life. We ain't going nowhere, we ain't going nowhere. We can't be stopped now, 'cause this rap shit for life.
Back when I had a dream,
I get this money, man.
I know my life.
What a good song, man. Okay, I fixed what I had to fix. Aha. You know, it's a pretty cool Monday. I started a new class today, but I'm not trying to do my assignments right now. I'm trying to play some Dreamscaper. But I give myself until 1 o'clock, and then I'll start my assignments, so. Yep. But this Ram Dass thing is like 2 hours, so it might take me till... Bro, what the fuck? Hold on. There you go. Nope, not that one. Boom. Yeah, it might take me till when I have to start to do my homework. But I'm not mad about that, because I wanted to listen to this again anyways. But I don't feel like talking either, so I'll see you later.
Although you may have shortcut some of these, I might have done them the most circuitous and painful route. And what I did was I started to just list different things that I thought had changed in my perceptions over these years, and I thought I'd just share some of those with you because I think they are as rich an inner statement, an inner history, as as we could expect of ourselves in this period of time. When I tried to do the 10-year business, that was hard because the meaning of time has changed as one major thing. Some of you may have noticed that. A year ago, I was 50 years old. And I've always gone to motels on my birthday because I don't like sort of that kind of hysterical fun that people have on celebrations usually. Sometimes it's real, but often it isn't. But this time was my 50th birthday, and I really wanted to milk it and see if there was something in there to really enjoy. So I called all these people, and I said it was my 50th birthday, and I had 4 parties. And we'd have cakes, and I'd bring champagne, or they'd have champagne, and I did one on television in New York, and they had a big birthday cake. And no matter how I milked it, I couldn't quite feel like I was any age. I mean, I have a 50-year-old body. This is a 1931 model right here. It's a foot decaying perfectly lawfully for a 31 model, just like I have a 74 MG. This is a 31 body. And so I was really celebrating the age of my vehicle at one level. Because I'd say that I'm at least 2 kalpas old on one plane. That's hundreds of thousands of years. Or else I'm newly born. Take your choice, because that's what it feels like. It feels like all and everything. I feel like every age. I went from, this is a change, I went from really a very strong identification with my body, where I was busy being bald, for example. So I had a long piece of hair, I sort of did that too, and then didn't go out in you know, when it was windy. Or when I was windy, I stood like this, you know, that was kind of and I was busy being not bald. And now it just doesn't seem to matter that much. I'm just so beautiful. What difference does it make if I'm bald? That may sound like ego to some of you, but it's a transcendent state. Years ago, I was very caught in specialness. I was what I now would call a phony holy. I was busy trying to be high for me and everybody else. I assumed that everybody wanted me to be high all the time. So I would prepare myself to be high in front of everybody. And there's a certain way you are when you're high, you know, you smile a lot and you're very benevolent, and a certain role, of the holy man role. And I took all the parts of me that didn't fit into that role, and I sort of shoved them under the rug so that I could be who everybody wanted me to be. Because I wanted to be that too. I really wanted to be Ram Dass. See, I had what was called vertical schizophrenia. I even had a name to go with each of my personalities. So there was Dick Alpert, and then there was Ram Dass. And Ram Dass would sit in front of a group of people and look out and just loved everybody and wanted nothing. And Dick Alpert was counting the house. And worse than that was that Dick Alpert was impersonating Ram Dass. Somebody would come up and say, "Oh, Ram Dass, thank you for your writings." And I'd hear Ram Dass say, I don't know who I was, but I would hear Ram Dass say, "Wouldn't you like to come up and see my holy pictures?" Well, that may seem funny to you, but it wasn't from inside, because what I felt was just a tremendous amount of hypocrisy in order to be what everybody wanted me to be. For those of you that are therapists, this just sounds like another case history, but that's... I once spoke at Einstein Medical School, Grand Rounds, medicals, you know, the hospital, and in New York. The young Turk psychiatrist brought me there, and they would have at Grand Rounds, they would have a lecture presentation, and they'd alternate it with a case study. And I came in early. Those were the days when I was wearing robes, which looked like a dress, and beads. And I came in and I sat only cross-legged, and all the chairs had narrow arms, so I sat on the end of the conference table. And these old Viennese psychiatrists started to come in. And they, of course, concluded that they'd read the schedule wrong. So I presented him as a case. It took them a while to figure out the case was presenting itself. Well, you see, what had happened was that the spiritual identity played right into my hands psychologically. Because psychologically, there were whole parts of my being that I was afraid of and that I didn't accept. And here I had a justification for getting rid of them by becoming holy. And I was using my spiritual journey psychodynamically in order to get myself free of things that I couldn't acknowledge in myself. But after a while, you begin to feel like you're standing on sand. You have to deal with the horror. You have to live with your own horror. And the predicament was that I was trying to live in the projections that other people were creating for me. But every now and then I had to be alone. And when I was alone, I'd go into very deep depressions, which I hid. And my theory was that if I did my sadhana hard enough, if I meditated deeply enough, if I opened my heart in devotional practices wide enough, sort of all that stuff would go away. But it didn't. And it has taken me a lot of years to be able to understand what the teaching was in all of this. I was busy going from the two into the one, from, say, dualism into non-dualism, from the multiplicity into the unity. All of yogic techniques are designed for that purpose. Yoga means union. And I could huff and puff in pranayama and control my breath to go into a trance state. And in that trance state, all of Dick Alpert just had gone completely. But I always came down again. And down had a pejorative connotation for me. I kept wanting to get high. I didn't want to come down. And as you know, I had years of attempting, along with my friend Ralph Metzner and Tim Leary and others, at better living through chemistry. But I indeed did keep coming down. And even with yogic techniques, I did. Now, in the course of the years, I've developed a lot of very strange friends. And one of them is a being named Emmanuel. And Emmanuel is interesting because Emmanuel doesn't have a body. He's a being on another plane, and he speaks through a woman named Pat Rodergast. And I know some of you here have a difficult time accepting my friend Emmanuel. I mean, you'd accept any of my other friends, but somehow you say you have no prejudices about color, sex, religion. But bodies, somehow, if somebody doesn't have a body, you immediately don't know that you want to accept them. But I figure that's your problem, because he's my friend, and the way I figured is I'll take my teachings anywhere I can get them. Okay? I don't care whether you got a body or which kind it is. If you got a teaching, I want it. And Emmanuel had a good teaching. Let me read you one of the things he said to me. He said, "You're here because you chose to be here, because this is a learning place. Each lifetime is a wonderful opportunity to expand your consciousness and to move closer, ever closer to your oneness with God. This happens in very small stages. First, oneness with self, oneness with your human community, then oneness with God. It cannot be done in one blinding flash. It would be too incomprehensible, too confusing. So be patient. When we choose to come back, we construct an embryo to hold within us the areas of distortion that we need to work on. Then we choose our infinite environment to act as a catalyst to bring out these areas. So you were where you needed to be as a very small child. So accept the distortions in you, because when you accept them, you can transform them. That's what life is about. You're here to find these areas of imperfection, to understand them, to love them, and to educate them into reality, which is truth, light, love. If in the transitional period you find things in yourself that are not perfect, don't blame yourself. Celebrate. So in effect, what Emmanuel said to me when I said to him, "Emmanuel, what work do I have to do now?" He said, "Ramdas, you're in a school. Why don't you try taking the curriculum?" He said, "You took a human birth. You're so busy being holy. Why don't you try being human?" Funny, I'd never thought of that. Isn't that far out? But somehow being human was less than perfect. Even though I intellectually knew that form is no other than formless and formless is no other than form, and I knew that the manifestation was God made manifest. Everything was perfect out there except me. But original sin was going to have a last stronghold right here. So I said, "Okay, Emmanuel, here I go." I decided to just go and be human. Now, I'd already figured this out, really. I remember being drunk with Alan Watts in a Benedictine monastery one night, if you can handle that image, and Alan said, "You know, the trouble with you, Dick," and you know you're going to get real truth at a moment like that. It's like 3 in the morning. He says, "You're too attached to emptiness." So with Alan and Emmanuel looking over my shoulder, I had already figured out that as long as I pushed anything in the universe away, I wasn't going to be free. And I saw that the game wasn't getting high, the game was being free. And that free included the highs and the lows. Free included it all and everything, as Gurdjieff said. Not, this is all God, except that. You just can't get stuck in those places. It's not good enough. That lovely line of G. Manley Hall, he who knows not that the Prince of Darkness is but the other face of the King of Light knows not me, says God. And if you're going to aim towards one, you can't get stuck along the way at two. Emmanuel said, if you want to be free, you're going to have to embrace original sin. You're going to have to incorporate the darkness into your light. Now, because I had sort of steeped myself in a Hindu tradition of renunciation, which could produce liberated beings, but more often produces horny celibates. I'm going to get in trouble at some level for this kind of stuff. I got to watch out. I found that when and so many years I had pushed away so much part of my personality, because I just kept denigrating the personality and saying, look, it's all, I called it body and fender repair work therapy. And I just had this feeling that somehow I looked and I said, in those days I said, look at all the great saints. They're all as neurotic as anybody else. It's just that it's kind of irrelevant. And so you don't have to change your neuroses. You just stop identifying with them. And you just make friends with them and they come by for tea. Because I realized, I mean, I'd been through years of psychoanalysis. And all I had done was really, I just invested so much reality in my neurosis, there wasn't a chance they were going to go away. Because the analyst thought my neuroses were real, because his were real. So we just kept reinforcing the reality of our identities. How could I be other than a patient? He was a doctor. There's only room for two of us in the room. So I found myself having opened up to relationship, and I was like a post-pubescent. And see, some years when you're doing, what I do is I live very spirally. I spend time sort of ram-dassing around the world. And then the toxicities build up and build up and build up until I begin to think it's real. And then I take time off, and I go to a monastery in Thailand, or I go to Bali and swim, or I go to Florence, Italy, and hang out with Michelangelo. Or I do different things each year. So I was having a relationship this year, and I found myself sitting in the bathtub crying with jealous rage. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I thought, this couldn't be me. I mean, my God, Ramdas, what are you doing? How absurd. And there was this part of me that was giggling. And I was crying, and the pain was excruciating. You know what jealousy is. Somebody must know what jealousy is like. I mean, the pain's really, yuck. Now, there's a tricky point right here of what's happened with me, because see if I can get this across. There's a thing called non-attachment, and then there's a psychodynamic called dissociation. And one often masquerades as the other, you see. So I was busy being non-attached. I'd say, there's depression. Ha, 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 ha. See? Now that looked like non-attachment, but actually you know that it was dissociation. See? And that was the first part. That was when I used to be phony about my personality. Then, when I started to open up to it, by the time I started to open up to it, I had developed something inside of me that was so deep and so rock-like, I guess. Although, yeah, rock-like. On the way, you develop a thing called a witness, like Uspensky in Search of the Miraculous, describing becoming self-remembering. Uspensky is walking down the street. Uspensky is turning left. Uspensky is and then Uspensky saw his tobacconist, and he remembered he needed tobacco, and 2 days later he remembered he was doing the experiment. Oh, I need tobacco. That was the end of the experiment. That's witnessing, and you can do that up to a certain point, but then the witness is just another part of your ego, really. It's just part looking at the other part. And finally, witness. That's a kind of a meditative technique you turn in on yourself. And behind all that, there's just a place. You can't even call it a place. It's just like sky. It just develops this kind of context, a frame of reference of isness. It doesn't have any quality to it. You can't say it's happy or sad or watchful, or it's not looking, but it's seeing. It just is. It's the Tao. It's the way. And there I was. What happened now when I was open to my personality stuff, really open to it with the full blast of it, I was no longer holding on to that space, but it was still there. It was there in a different way, though. It wasn't there to push away the pain. It was there along with the pain. Is that coming through for you? Hear what I'm talking about? So at that point this winter, a friend called me and he said, and he was somebody I had worked with and had been kind of a mess a few years before. And he called me, he didn't sound like a mess at all, and I said, gee, you sound wonderful. Why are you so wonderful? And he said, I'm in therapy. And I said, yeah? I said, is it good? He says, oh yeah, wonderful. I said, what's the name of your therapist? Told me, so I thought, well, gee, I think I'll do that. So I called the therapist and I said, I want some of what you sell. So I hired him, and we worked together all winter. So I was in Jungian analysis all winter. People say, you, Ram Dass, in Jungian analysis? Why not? I mean, I go to the toilet and everything else. Real people. Something that is still really coming out more clearly to me was that the movement from knowing the world through conceptual structures and knowing it another way, which we could use, the Western word we often use is intuitively. I have felt that the problems that we kept creating with our rational minds were only going to be solved by our intuitive connection to the universe. I felt this about nuclear energy. I felt it about most of the ways in which technology has taken us, our minds have taken, and extrapolations of our minds, extensions, have taken us in directions that have taken us away from our connection with what is, so that we seem to be intentionally destroying the ecosphere on which we are dependent. And we seem to be screwing up our human relations at an incredible rate. And I kept looking for intuitive training to connect with that deeper and deeper part of my being that just knows. It's not one that knows it knows. That's the frontal lobe. It just knows. It knows because it is. It is. It's like knowing how to make a fist. You don't know you know how to do it, but you do it. And when I was in that intuitive domain, everything in the universe is subject. When I'm in my analytic conceptual mind, the universe is object. I'm always one thought away from where the action is. So that I could see that my thinking mind was an instrument of it reinforced my sense of separateness. And that I didn't want to get rid of my thinking mind, but I wanted to have it around like, hey, you, I need you. Not, yes, yes, you know. I wanted to change the thinking mind from a master into a servant, so that I didn't have to think all the time, because I had always thought all the time, because I was paid for thinking all the time. So when I'd fly across the country in my airplane, I'd have a clipboard on my knee to write down important thoughts and a tape recorder to tape all my ideas, because that was my bread and butter. And it got very complicated for me, because as life gets as real as it is, it's very hard to rationally think through everything. It's awfully complicated. I had a dramatic example I've talked about in my lectures this year. A year ago, or a year and a half ago, I was in Benares in India, the city of dying. And a friend and I were going to the bathing ghats, to the sacred bathing area in the Ganges River, where you can bathe with all of the floating dead bodies and things. It's a very auspicious place to die, by the way, Benares. And as we were going there, we passed about, I don't know, I really don't know the number. I've changed the number at different times because I don't remember, but probably it was about 100, 125 lepers. And they all had begging bowls. And we shared our coins, my friend and I had about 20 coins, and there was 125 lepers. So I started down the line. Who am I going to give the coins to? Now my rational mind started in. Well, let's see. That fellow is missing his arms, but that woman has her face eaten away. Do you suppose that's worth a rupee? I mean, can you hear how ghastly that is? Because I only had 20 coins and there were 125 lepers. And I did this for about 3 coins. I mean, if you're young and you don't have any feet, on a score of 1 to 10? Eh? I'm using a grotesque example, but life is pretty grotesque. I mean, you're on the good guy mailing list too, you know. Somebody is, I can hear her out there. Finally, I just gave up. I just went on intuitive. I just went down the line looking people in the eye, and every now and then I'd hand out a coin. And the coins were over, and I was enjoying being with all these beings, and I didn't get into the whole business of guilt and judgment and all this stuff, which would have just destroyed the moment for me. It turns out they have a union and they share all their coins. I didn't know that, so the lesson was great for me, you know. And so I have been sort of really opening to my intuitive way of doing things. So I just respond much more whimsically without any reason for doing it particularly. Sure, I'll do that. No, I won't. Why? I don't know. Well, shouldn't you? No. If you can stand that original confrontation, you mean you're not being rational? No. You gotta really, you know, have a cold eye at that moment, I think, 'cause, you mean you trust, but don't you know what you're full of? Yeah, but behind that, I know. Do you know you know? No. And you still trust? Yes. I don't know. I mean, you recognize this dialogue. It's a dialogue you have with yourself, actually. And it gets extraordinarily exciting when you just say, well, here we go. I'm going intuition. But the problem that I ran into for some years was that the doorway to the intuition is through the human heart. And I was trying to leap into cosmic love without dealing with emotionality. Because emotionality was a little too human for me. And what I experienced was that there was, see how I can say this, that I had used pushing away my humanity to embrace my divinity. And then I wanted to be intuitive, but the intuition, the impeccable warrior intuitive action has to come from a blending of humanity and divinity. And until I could accept my humanity fully, my intuitions weren't going to be fully in harmony with the way of things. The paradoxes that I was stretching to deal with, which I'm sure are familiar to you, is that when you get into one plane, you look out and you say, we are all one. Then you come to another plane and you say, but it's my television set. Okay? The resolution of it is the Sufi statement, trust in Allah, but tie your camel. When I went into my 6th chakra, everything looked absolutely perfect to me. I could look at anything. I could look at suffering and see the way in which it was grace. I could see death as grace. It was a place that was so clear, but with that clarity there was no warmth. It was the kind of clarity that if somebody falls down in front of you, you say, karma. But when I come down into my human heart, it would hurt so bad. Because the more you open up to the suffering of the universe, the easiest way to handle it is to go up. It's much harder to stay down and stay open. It's excruciatingly painful. And I began to feel that what my freedom was going to lie in was the creative tension of being able to see simultaneously the perfection and also to experience the pain. To see that there was nothing to do and to work as hard as I could to relieve suffering. To see it was all a dream and still live within the reality of it. That creative tension. And I felt that the place that I had to work finally, and I have to work, and I am working, is to get the fullness of the human heart. And I begin to feel like a character in The Wizard of Oz that has a tin heart. Because I saw human beings getting so lost in their emotionality that I just kept going up in order to, and embracing the kind of clear, crisp perceptions of the universe. People said, we love you and we think you're beautiful and you're very clear, but at some level, people would say to me, we don't trust you. And I heard what they were saying. They were saying they didn't trust me because they couldn't feel my heart. They couldn't feel my humanness. There's an image of a Buddha statue with a tiny smile at the edge of the lips, and it's known as the smile of unbearable compassion. It's a way in which you can open to how it all is, the horrible beauty of it all, and you can bear it. Not by deadening yourself, but by balancing. And what I'm experiencing, if you talk about the 10 years, is that as the faith has gotten deeper, not the beliefs, because beliefs aren't going to keep you warm in a cold night. That's too head trippy. The faith, the connection to that which you are at the deepest level, to the universe, to the oneness of all things. As that faith gets deeper and deeper, so you can dramatically, much more freely throw yourself into life. As long as the faith flickers, you've got to be very tentative about the way you go into life because you're always afraid you're going to lose your connection to the Spirit. But when that faith is really strong, you can say, here I come, wow. And what I've experienced in the past few years, people come up and say, you know, Ramdas, you're really just human. But they're saying it with, it's an interesting thing what I had done psychodynamically. Because my personality felt so inadequate that what I was doing was becoming bigger than life. So everybody, what I did to everybody else was they'd sit down there and say, oh, look at Ram Dass. We could never be like him. And now they look and they say, geez, just another guy. What do you know? And that freed other people. It was interesting that as I no longer wanted to play with that psychologically, the whole game of communication changed. It's a big one. It's a big one. It's a big one, embracing humanity. Not embracing humanity, embracing my humanity. And it's reflected in social action, for example. I mean, Caspar Weinberger isn't him. He's that part of me that I don't want to cop to. I externalize. It's like investing the pigs with all the bad spirits and then sending them over the cliff. That's what we do to our government officials. Do you want me to change this? Is this too heavy, or are you getting bored, or do you want me to stop? Or I don't know. I mean, I can't. These lights, I don't see anything anyway. It's just a big black haze I'm talking to, except for you. I see you. You know, you better keep smiling. Is all I can say to you. Then some years ago, I met this 74, that's almost 10 years, that's 8 years ago. I met this Tibetan rascal named Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And I met him in Brooklyn. He came drunk to give a lecture. And with tantrics, you can never trust them as far as you can throw them. You never know what they're doing, you know. He just looks like a drunken jerk, but you never know, see, because that's what a tantric would look like, see. So I never trust tantrics, you know, they're always... I just spent a week with another one in the East Coast this past week, Abdul Aziz Saeed. He's a Sufi who's a professor of international relations at American University in Washington, and he's clearly something other than he appears. Clearly a front. Everything I could find was a front, I was sure. So Trungpa, I met him one night in Brooklyn, and then a few days later I was going to Canada, and he was speaking up in Vermont, and so I stopped by. He was speaking on Don Juan, and I stopped by to sort of pick up on one of his lectures. I thought I could sneak in and sit in the back. And some of my friends were there, so we were out in their van smoking dope before the lecture. And this was in '74. See, I can do it by doing it that way. Then you don't know, do you? Like, I'm always interviewed by magazines like in Savannah, Georgia, and they say, when did you stop taking drugs? I said, I'll let you know. So somebody came out and said, Trungpa wants to see you. Great. So I went in and I got brought into this room, and there was one table and one chair, and he was sitting in it, and one sake bottle and one glass. So I knelt in front of him. And he looked at me and he said, Ram Dass, we have to accept responsibility. I mean, what would you do with an opening gambit like that? I mean, I offer to you, you know? So I said, what responsibility, Rinpoche? God has all the responsibility. I don't have any responsibility. Not mine, but thy will. He said, you're copping out. Then we turn to other conversation about this and that. But that's stuck in my craw. More recently, Emmanuel said to me, Ram Dass, you really have a choice of whether you want to be the victim or the creator. I mean, if you look at yourself, you have a body, you have a personality, you have senses. These are all lawful. They all work by law. Everything in form is law. Even thoughts are form and they have law. It's all working fine. It's all just flowing and unfolding, and the laws of karma are working perfectly. And in that sense, it's just all happening to you. As long as you identify with that, you experience yourself as being a victim. Poor me. Look at what's happened. Look at the world I'm living in. Look at what's been foisted upon me. If I didn't have this beauty mark, I'd be whatever. But he said, Ram Dass, there's a part of you that created this whole business. Why don't you accept the responsibility? Now, at the worst level, that is reinterpreted as... In fact, everything that you can label and point to in yourself isn't the creator, and yet you are. So the first step I recognized was accepting the responsibility for the way things are, fully. Which raised the interesting possibility that I was exactly as I should be at this moment. I wasn't 3 steps behind, as I usually feel. But if I hurried, I could catch up. Some of you must know that feeling. I'm really schlock phony, but if I get to work, I'll clean it up, and then I'll be who I really... So you keep holding these models of how you're supposed to be. You overthink. So accepting responsibility means that I accept the responsibility for the creation of what I am. And I also am the creation. I am the creator and that which is created. As long as I identify only with the creation, I feel victimized. As long as I identify only with the creator, I have no form. I realized that what the responsibility that Trungpa had been talking about, that Emmanuel was talking about, was not what my father used to say, be responsible, young man. It was at some very profound level, not the way he meant it though. In order to hear clearly why things are the way they are, I really had to develop, or am developing, the capacity to listen. To listen to hear the laws of the universe, of which I am part. The created part of me is part, the manifest part of me is part. See, if I go back now to the point where I said I started out feeling very special, I was busy holding on to a myth about myself, a scenario about myself. Dick Alpert, like in the introduction, thrown out of Harvard, drugs, yoga. Guru games. a scenario, what will happen next, what will become, and you were just living with a whole model of who you were becoming, and it's very somebodyness. Then I decided that I was going into, that really the game was to become nobody. So I went in a nobody training. I went around giving lectures, nothing new by nobody special. There's a great thing I brought out to show you. It's a clipping from a Seattle newspaper. Picture of this guy, he's in jail. Titled John Doe. He was found with a suitcase full of identities, but none of them, it turns out, belong to him. We can prove he's not who he says he is, says Detective Larry Baylor, but we can't find out who he is. Doe says that they are the ones who arrested me and convicted me. It's their duty to find out who I am. He said, I know who I am. But I was a little bit like the janitor in the shul, and the rabbi was davening, and he fell down his knees. He says, oh God, I'm nothing, I'm nothing, I'm nothing. So the cantor came along and he saw the rabbi doing that, so he fell on his knees and he said, I'm nothing, mea culpa-ing it. And so the janitor came along and he saw them doing it, so he sat down, I'm nothing, and the rabbi nudges the cantor, he says, so look who's being nothing. So I was going to be nobody special like the big boys. You can hear there's a sneaky somebodyness in there. If you can see, it just sort of sneaks in on you like a... Again, just because Emmanuel keeps coming to mind these days, he must be copying my consciousness. He said, I said, Emmanuel, I teach a lot about dying. He always got a great line for dying. I said, what should I tell people about dying? He says, tell them it's absolutely safe. I mean, wouldn't you trust somebody that says a thing like that? So I said, people don't really want to die into enlightenment because they don't want it to cease to exist as separate entities. He says, oh, you humans and your dualistic minds. Why do you think people have to cease to be separate just because they're part of the one? Can't they be both? Wow. And at that moment, I started to appreciate uniqueness. No longer separateness, which separates, but unique function, which draws together. I started to listen for my own uniqueness and not feel like I had to get away from it, but that I could embrace it fully, because that was the form that the Spirit was going to speak through me. This is old hat to most of you, but to me, I'm a very slow learner, as you can see. I'm taking you through my slow learning. So as part of my human incarnation, you see, I decided I have to figure out what it means that I was born a human. What does it mean that I've got a father that's living? What does it mean that I was born a Jew? What does it mean that I'm a man, a man's body? What does it mean that I'm bisexual? What does it mean that I'm an American? What does it mean that I'm a part of the human species? What does it mean that I'm part of the ecosphere? On and on and on. See, now, I grew up at a time when the biggest thing was to get independent. You moved away. And now, suddenly, what does it mean to honor my father? What does it mean that I have a family? What does that mean? So I decided I have to love my father. Now, visiting your father when you're working on consciousness or your family. I mean, I used to last about 20 seconds, you know. I'd come in the Buddha. And it'd just take a question like, what are you doing for a living? You know, and I'd be lost. I mean, it would be all gone. But I was going to take on the hot fires, so I'm going to love my father. So here I am, Dad. I love you, you know. But he smelled a rat. He knew. And we'd go to the ball game because that's what he liked to do, and I'd be busy. I look at what a holy look at. I'm going to the ball game with Dad. You know that one? I'd be long suffering quietly to myself. Geez, it's so ugly. Ugh. Yick, yick. That was 10 years ago. I've really been working at that. Now it's far out. I really, really dig extended family. And I really love being with my father. We hang out, we play Yahtzee. And we watch the ball game. What else have I got to do? How does the spirit manifest? Is it only in Om Mani Padme Hum? Doesn't it, you know? Why isn't Yahtzee as much the divine spirit as anything else? It's a way of being with another being. I began to see that I could let go of all the forms that were keeping me separate from everybody. Can't be with you, I gotta be holy. And when I started to open the door to the extended family, that started to do an interesting thing, because 10 years ago, I was always trying to get juice off young people. You know, that's where the energy was. I mean, that's where the movements were. That's where the action was. That's where the spiritual change in the world was going to happen. And I was sort of the uncle to a certain group of people that were going to make it happen. But I began to see signs. Way, way back, I saw signs that it wasn't the way I thought it was, but I kept ignoring them. I've got one delicious sign. I tell this every lecture because it's such a delicious image. It's at a time when everybody that came into my audience is always the same age, and they all dressed a certain way. They all wore white and had smiles and had flowers and were, you know, we love everybody. You know, they were real repressed anger. So, this one night, they were all there smiling, and I assumed everybody had acid, and we were all I was talking far out talk, you know. And there was a woman sitting down the front who was about 70, and she had a hat on with oranges and cherries and things, and she had a black patent leather bag and a print dress and responsible Oxfords. I think I've conveyed the type. And she was sitting there, and I'd say these outrageous things, and she'd go like this, you see. And I think, how does she know? You know, this is not an acid head. I mean, I kept looking at her, and I'd say more outrageous things and look, and she'd go like this, you know. So at the end of the lecture, I kind of smiled her up. She came up and she said, "Oh, thank you." She said, "Everything you said just made perfect sense, and it was just so clear." And I said, "How do you know all that? What do you do that gets you into the position of consciousness that you know all this?" She leaned forth very conspiratorially and she said, "I crochet." And I started the past few years to realize that I was feeling a great affinity. Maybe it's because of my age, but I was beginning to feel this great affinity to the elders of the society. There's some nice lines somewhere here. Here's a great poem. Oh, nice. Here's the nice line. Henry Amiel said, "To know how to grow old is the masterwork of wisdom, one of the most difficult chapters in the great art of living." Longfellow, "For age is opportunity no less than youth itself, though in another dress. And as the evening twilight fades away, the sky is filled with stars invisible by day." This is a lovely thing that I actually got from one of Ken Dykewald's articles. It's a poem by Jenny Joseph. I love it. It's a warning. "When I am an old woman, I shall wear purple with a red hat which doesn't go and doesn't suit me. And I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals and say, we've no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick along the public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain, pick the flowers in other people's gardens, and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go or only bread and a pickle for a week and hoard pens and pencils and beer mats and things and boxes. But now we must have clothes that keep us dry and pay the rent and not swear in the street and set a good example for the children. We must have friends to dinner and read the papers. But maybe I ought to practice a little now, so people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I am old and start to wear purple." So as I started to try to integrate the deeper parts of my inner being, I found that my inner being was acknowledging a much broader spectrum of the universe than my habitual separate self was. I was suddenly beginning to delight in the elders as well as young people. The whole game was changing. Starting to enjoy hanging out with my father. Beginning to feel the quality of the way that I had cut off my own growth by pushing him away in order to get holy. I take teachers wherever they come from, and this is one more story that is just, I've told many times, but it's just so sweet. Last September, John and Tony Lilly, who work with dolphins, asked me if I'd like to swim with the dolphins. And I said, of course, because you're supposed to want to swim with dolphins. So on this cold day in Redwood City up at the Marine World, in the big tanks, there were Joe and Rosie, these 2 dolphins. My friend and I went to swim with them, and my friend was in there, and I got into the place where you can stand at one end of the tank, one edge of the tank, and then I got in and started to paddle water. It was a cold, gray day, and I'm old, I couldn't figure out what the hell I was doing, and I thought, what am I doing with dolphins? And, you know, I mean, it's, what are you supposed to do now? And see, and people were standing around the edge watching to see what Ram Dass would do with the dolphins. So, you know, you're right on the line. You know, you gotta, hello, dolphin, you know, it's like. So Joe and Rosie made these passes by me, very close. And the first thing I was aware of was that they were very big, and that I was in their territory, and that I think I was in over my head. I mean, I was paddling water, but what did I think I was doing here? What should I do now? So, a week before, I'd been down in Hollywood with Tim Leary. And Tim had gone swimming with the dolphins, and I said, what's it like? He says, it's like having sex. So I thought, well, that's interesting. So, I usually don't tell it that way, but I mean, what the hell, you're friends. So Rosie was...
Would change, just need $100 grand. Back then, I had a dream. I get this money, man. I know my life would change, just need $100 grand. Yeah. Back when I first made $100 grand. Yeah, back when I first made a. Yeah. Back when I first made $100 grand. Yeah, back when I first made $100 grand. Thought I was a shit. When I first made $100 grand. Thought I was a king. When I first made $100 grand. Couldn't tell me nothing. When I first made $100 grand. Made $100 grand. Yeah, okay. Back then they used to call me little, but now I'm riding something clean in a coat made of armadillo. They haven't got the memo. I'm saying I'm the shit though. Trying to make it complicated when the shit is simple. Tell me what you wanna be, what your dreams is. 100 G's in my jeans, I'm a genius. And every day someone save me please and get schooled, homie change degrees. I'm the plug, what you need though. I'm going beast mode. I keep a freak even when she underwater, she can deep throat. I made a meal before I paid a bill. These fools worry about a wave, I'm a Navy SEAL. Come with me, I can make your life change for real. Always had a dream of stunting, it ain't nothing unless you running shit. Just a young motherfucker with a plan. Thought I was a man. Back when I first made $100 grand. Thought I was a shit. When I first made $100 grand. Thought I was a king. When I first made $100 grand. Couldn't tell me nothing. When I first made $100 grand. Made $100 grand.
There's a humming in the restless summer air, and we're slipping off the course that we prepared. But in all chaos there is calculation, dropping glasses just to hear them break. You've been drinking like the world was gonna end, took a shining from the fist of your best friend. It's clear that someone's gotta go. We mean it, but I promise we're not mean. And the cry goes out. They lose their minds for us and how it plays out. And now we're in the ring and we're coming for blood. You could try and take us, but we're the gladiators. Everyone a ranger, but secretly the savior. Glory and gore go hand in hand. That's why we're making headlines. You could try and take us, but victory's contagious. Delicate in every way but one. God knows we like archaic kinds of fun. Chance is the only game I play with, baby. We let our battles choose us. And the cry goes out. They lose their minds for us and how it plays out. And now we're in the ring and we're coming for blood. You could try and take us, but we're the gladiators. Everyone a ranger, but secretly the savior. Glory and gore go hand in hand. That's why we're making headlines. You could try and take us, but victory's contagious. No one around here's good at keeping their eyes closed. The sun's starting to light up when we're walking home. Tired little laughs, gold-like promises. We'll always win at this. I don't ever think about death. It's alright if you do, it's fine. We gladiate, but I guess we're really fighting ourselves. Roughing up our minds so we're ready when the kill time comes. Wide awake in bed, words in my brain. Secretly you love fish, do you even wanna go free? Let me in the ring, I'll show you what that big word means. You could try and take us, but we're the gladiators. Everyone a ranger, but secretly the savior. Glory and gore go hand in hand. That's why we're making headlines. You could try and take us, but victory's contagious.
Sorry, I had to get some breakfast.
swimming. She sort of hung right out here. And I went to touch her, figuring she'd, you know, pull away, because, you know, you touch a fish or something, it goes away. And so I touched Rosie, and she stayed there, and I kind of, because the first time I touched my guru's foot, you know, the big thing is to get the guru's foot. You sit there sort of edging up on the front line to see if you can get the foot, and the foot appeared out of the blanket, and I grabbed for the foot, see, and then I didn't know what to do with it once I had it, see. So I started to think, what are you supposed to do now? And I started to do, you know, Yogi Bhajan works with a foot, you press the, you know, and I started to push here and there and stuff, and immediately the foot got pulled back under the blanket, and I knew I had screwed up completely. So I expected Rosie to do the same thing, because, you know, those higher beings don't usually have too much to do with people like me. So, I mean, I'm the kind that you walk in, the dogs bark and the babies cry, you know, and I'm a holy man and I'm saying hello there, and it's like babies know truth, you know, one of those kind of things. You gotta Well, she stayed there, and I just kept starting, and her skin felt so good, because it's made up of a lot of, it's about 70% water, and so it's very, the consistency is incredible. It's very soft and very, just a good feeling about it. And I started to rub her skin, and well, what happened just before that, I've got to tell you, I knew I'd forgotten one thing about it. Because before Rosie came over, Joe came over to me, and he opened his mouth, and he put it around my wrist. And like every Jaws fantasy I'd ever had went through my mind. You know, I saw the hand falling to the ground, because the mouth, I mean, I'm sure it's a dolphin, bottlenose dolphin, but I don't make those distinctions. To me, it's one of those big mouths, and it just went around my wrist, you know. Just stayed there, and I suddenly went into waves of ecstasy. I mean, my mind just had gone away completely, the models of dolphins and me and what I'm supposed to do. I was just in ecstasy, and about, couldn't have been more than 10 seconds later, Rosie was upright. I had my arms around her. She had her fins around me. I was kissing her on the mouth and saying, "Oh, Rosie, I love you so much. Oh, Rosie, oh, God." Then she was sort of hanging in right here, and so I thought what I'd really like to do is, you know, like a flipper scene. I'd like to have her take me for a ride. So I took her upper fin, and she swam away, and it slipped off, and I didn't want to hold too hard. I didn't want to hurt it, because it felt like I could break it or something. I came back up, and I grabbed it, and she went down again, and I grabbed it, and she went down again. So then I grabbed it, and I put my hand under her belly and held on, figuring, I don't think she's going to like this, but I'll try, because I keep slipping away. And she went down wildly, and I thought, oh, it's bugging her. So I let go, and I came up, figuring, well, I'll give up, you know. And immediately she was right under my arm, waiting for me. See, she was training me. We were very slow, and she took her a while to... So okay, great, and I grabbed hold as tight as I could, and we went wildly around the tank. You know, ooh, every fantasy. And then after a while, this thought dawned on me, you know, Rosie, you're a dolphin, but I'm a human, and I think it's getting time, you know, I gotta breathe. And the minute the thought crossed my mind, we came immediately to the surface, and Rosie waited while I took a breath. And then we went down again. Okay? So one time we came up and for me to get a breath, and they were taking pictures. And I got into hamming it up with me and the dolphins, you know, like, you know. And I forgot to take a breath, see, and Rosie went down again. And I thought, well, Rosie, this is the parting of the ways, you know, and must have been 10 seconds. She right back up waiting. And after about 40 minutes, I was shaking with cold and fatigue. I mean, it was very strenuous, and, you know, and it was cold. I didn't have a wetsuit on and stuff, and so, but I couldn't let go. It was just too much fun. But I was really getting tired, and at one point I just felt fatigue. And the minute that feeling went through my body, Rosie came to the surface, shook me off, went around the pool once, and she contacted Joe some way or other, came back, and she and Joe put their noses against my belly, pushed me over the holding platform. And every time I tried to get in, they'd push me back. They wouldn't let me in anymore. They'd play with my friend, but not with me anymore. And if I stayed up on the side and played with my hand, they'd come over and hang out. But if I tried to get in, they'd push me out. Now, to me, that's a teacher of intuitive training. I mean, I'll take my teachers wherever they come. I mean, yeah. I've had some great teachers along the way, and I consider Joe and Rosie two of my best. My best. Okay, well, this goes on and on forever, so. I guess what I'm experiencing is listening more and more carefully to my body, to my heart, to my mind. And the more I go inside and listen, the more the inside and the outside are one. And the more I experience, it's interesting that the more I try to get myself together, the more, without the intellectual overlay of I must honor my incarnation, the more I find myself involved in social action. But I find myself involved in social action in a very interesting way. I don't find myself involved in social action out of urgency or fear. I find myself involved in it because it's the way of the impeccable warrior. I mean, I am a member of a society. I feel I must vote. There's not even a question about it. I feel that when something doesn't feel right, I must speak up about it not feeling right, because that's my responsibility. My silence is my vote. I'm beginning to see that I am only going to be free when I am fully involved in the world. Isn't that a strange one? Can you hear that? And there's some interesting dialogues that I've been having with various people, like Dan Ellsberg and others, about the motives for social action. Because all I experience is that the inside is the outside and the outside is the inside, and intuitively it just feels right to do certain things, and there's nothing special about it. There's no big deal about it. And it's not done because I'm holding on to a scenario of what's going to happen in the universe. People say, do you expect Armageddon or do you expect a brave new world? And I said, look, to me, these are scenarios, and I understand having a positive scenario, and I will certainly move towards one, but I see them all as just scenarios. I used to listen to Walter Cronkite, and every night he'd say, that's the way it is today, and I used to believe him. Then I realized it was just the way he saw it to be today. There were many todays. But I realized that whichever scenario we had in the universe, whether it's going to end in 5 minutes or 5 billion years, all I knew was that at this moment I had to do the same thing. I had to quiet my mind so I could hear more clearly, open my heart so that I was more part of the flow, the Tao, the way of things, the liquidity of the universe. And all of my acts would be dharmic. They would do what they could to relieve suffering. What else was I going to do? And did that matter which way it was going to go? In other words, I heard the Gita's injunction, the Bhagavad Gita's injunction, be not attached to the fruits of the action. And I found that my social action friends had a hard time believing that if I wasn't attached to the fruits of the actions, I'd actually do it. I'd do anything useful for them or for the world. And I kept pointing out to Dan Ellsberg, far out, you're here at this rally, so am I. What do you suppose I'm doing here? Now, this is a big topic, and I can't really get into it tonight. I'm going to talk about it probably a little bit tomorrow on the panel with Donald Keyes and others in the morning. But just as I'm learning what it means to be my father's son, so I'm learning what it means to be an American, so what it means to be part of all these different levels of reality. Like for a long time, I was so busy being holy, I couldn't afford aesthetics. No time for aesthetics, I gotta go to God. So my cello just sat in the closet. And now I'm playing string quartets again. And I'm suddenly finding it's okay. Not only is it okay, but I feel like I'm in the spirit. And we're going around, a group of us play harpsichord and recorder. We're going to go around and play in old folks' homes in New Mexico. They're all deaf anyway, so they won't hear what a lousy cellist I am. But I feel that all the work I've done with dying, the dying centers and the dying project, Stephen Levine and stuff like that, really keeping death on my left shoulder, just opening to what that is, making not friends, but acknowledging, living with death. Now I'm learning to live with life. New one for me. I'm learning to honor my body. I see that I haven't really been in my body fully, and that I have work to do in my body. I have work to do with my heart. It's all fine, it's all going just fine, and I'm very patient. One of the things that changed in 10 years ago I used to be counting. How soon till I get enlightened? It's always about, let's be around 3:30, do you think? We used to have charts on the wall at Millbrook when we were taking acid, after we put the acid in the reservoir, how quickly the world was going to get enlightened. Because it was only a matter of numbers. Critical mass. Now I've developed patience. It's not despair, it's patience. It's rooted in hopelessness. It means I've gone out of time because I'm doing what I am doing, because my attachment to where I was going was getting in the way of being. As the third Chinese patriarch says, even to be attached to enlightenment is to go astray. What else am I going to do? Somehow getting together my mind, my heart, my body, my soul, which means listening very carefully to hear what my life is about, my relation to my culture, my relation to death, just keep expanding outward that thing, means that the acts, means that you disappear into the total center of all of those vectors, and the action just comes out of that. Gandhi said, when you make yourself zero, your actions become, the word wasn't unbeatable, it was irresistible. Those of you that have seen the movie Chariots of Fire, you could feel the way in which body, mind, heart, belief system, everything unified to take a being beyond himself. That's where we get to impeccable warrior. But there is a certain playfulness. There is a certain controlled folly in the impeccable warrior. And I will tell you, I'm going to stop because I know it's getting late, but I feel I have to tell you that some of the stuff that I still must struggle with, I mean I collectively as us, where is, don't go away, it's here. I'm just going to read you this other great, I won't read this now, but about listening, but if you get a chance, there's a book by Seltzer called Mortal Lessons, put out by Simon & Schuster. And it has a story about the Dalai Lama's doctor in a grand rounds at a hospital. Two-page. You all know that? I may have to read it to you. I can't resist. It's so good. But that wasn't what I was talking about. So, no, I have to stop. I have till 10. Is that right? Did you say? No. Is that somebody must be in charge here. I mean, they couldn't have left it for just us kids, could they? There must be some adult here somewhere. Okay, 10. What'd you say? Okay, well, I'll try to stop at 10, because, okay. This is Don Juan saying, this is the stuff that's heavy to deal with, see. In other words, a man of knowledge, and I always, when I read these things, see, I've been trained very well, so I would never say a man of knowledge. I would either say a person of knowledge, or I would say he or she of knowledge. See, I mean, I understand what the game is and how badly, and so, but I get into this funny thing of trying to rewrite Buddha, and, you know, so, it's like I'm not going to rewrite this. I'll just read it the way, and take it up with Don Juan. Don't take it up with me. I'm just a middleman. Male chauvinist pig. In other words, a man of knowledge has no honor, no dignity, no family, no name, no country, but only life to be lived. And under these circumstances, his only tie to his fellow men is his controlled folly. And then he goes on to say, so that a man of knowledge huffs and puffs and makes believe that it matters, even though that he knows that it doesn't. Now, I know that, but I can't bear knowing I know it. Okay? It's too fierce. There are certain things that are too fierce just yet. I've been working with them, like the third Chinese patriarch I've been working with for 6-8 years now. This starts out, this is the writings of the third Chinese. It's about a 4-page thing. It's everything he wrote in his whole lifetime. A very, very great being. It starts out, the great way is not difficult. The great way is capital G, capital W. The great way is not difficult for one who has no preferences. And the second line is even more of a stinker. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. But make the slightest distinction, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. You ready? Or the story I've got to deal with of Sambari Maharaj. I think I put it in this book. By the way, this is a great book. It's my latest book. It's called Miracle of Love. It's 1,000 stories about my guru, and you wouldn't believe them. They're probably not true, that's why. It doesn't matter, they're just wonderful. The Sambari Maharaj, a beautiful saint in the mountains, had an old devotee, and he said to the old devotee, here are 2 potatoes. I hate this story. I don't know why I tell it. It's like I must be a masochist. He said, here are 2 potatoes. Take them down by the river and eat both potatoes. It's the guru speaking. So the guy goes down to the river. He's been a devotee for some years. He starts to eat the first potato. He's eating the first potato. Suddenly this old beggar appears. Papaji, you give me this potato, other potato? Very hungry. So what can the guy do? He's eating the first potato, he's got the second potato, and there's this starving beggar, so he gives him the second potato. He finishes the first potato, he walks back up the hill, which is out of sight of the cave where Sambhari Maharaj lived. So he approaches the cave. Sambhari Maharaj, who's been in the cave, comes out screaming, "You..." He comes out screaming, he says, "You fool, you bloody fool. You should never have given away the second potato." Ah, well, that's your destiny. The man went on to be a leading judge. He had 5 children, they all had good marriages. Everything went well in his life, and he lived a very dharmic life. That was the first potato. That's the end of the story. Now you're left with it. Enjoy. Don't get indigestion. Yeah, I said I would read this, and I want to read this to you because it seems important to me. I know it's familiar to some of you, but it's so good because it really conveys, I think, the essence of what... I'm not sure I've said anything about the last 10 years, but I don't care. It's just fun being with you. But this conveys the essence of what I've learned is just to start to listen, like Milarepa, with it, you know, just listening, learning to listen. On the bulletin board in the front hall of the hospital where I work, there appeared an announcement. Yeshi Dondan, it read, will make rounds at 6 o'clock on the morning of June 10th. The particulars were then given, followed by a notation. Yeshi Dondan is personal physician to the Dalai Lama. I am not so leathery a skeptic that I would knowingly ignore an emissary from the gods. Not only might such sang-froid be inimical to one's earthly well-being, it could take care of eternity as well. Thus, on the morning of June 10, I joined the clutch of whitecoats waiting in the small conference room adjacent to the ward selected for the rounds. The air in the room is heavy with ill-concealed dubiety and suspicion of bamboozlement. You can... Yeshi Dondan, we are told, will examine a patient selected by a member of the staff. The diagnosis is as unknown to Yeshi Dondan as it is to us. The examination of the patient will take place in our presence, after which we will reconvene in the conference room where Yeshi Dondan will discuss the case. We are further informed that for the past 2 hours, Yeshi Dondan has purified himself by bathing, fasting, and prayer. I, having breakfasted well, performed only the most desultory of ablutions, and given no thought at all to my soul, glanced furtively at my fellows. Suddenly we seem a soiled, uncouth lot. The patient had been awakened early and told that she was to be examined by a foreign doctor and had been asked to produce a fresh specimen of urine. So when we enter her room, the woman shows no surprise. She has long ago taken on that mixture of compliance and resignation that is the face of chronic illness. This was to be but another in an endless series of tests and examinations. Yeshi Dondan steps to the bedside, and while the rest stand apart watching, for a long time he gazes at the woman, favoring no part of her body with his eyes, but seeming to fix his glance at a place just above her supine form. I too study her. No physical sign nor obvious symptom gives a clue to the nature of her disease. At last he takes her hand, raising it in both of his own. Now he bends over the bed in a kind of crouching stance, his head drawn down into the collar of his robe. His eyes are closed as he feels for her pulse. In a moment he has found the spot, and for the next half hour he remains thus, suspended above the patient like some exotic golden bird with folded wings. For the next half hour he remains thus, suspended above the patient like some exotic golden bird with folded wings, holding the pulse of the woman beneath his fingers, cradling her hand in his. All the power of the man seems to have been drawn down into this one purpose. It is palpitation of the pulse raised to the state of ritual. From the foot of the bed where I stand, it is as though he and the patient have entered a special place of isolation, of apartness, about which a vacancy hovers and across which no violation is possible. After a moment, the woman rests back upon her pillow. From time to time, she raises her head to look at the strange figure above her, then sinks back once more. I cannot see their hands joined in a correspondence that is exclusive, intimate, his fingertips receiving the voice of her sick body through the rhythm and throb she offers at her wrist. All at once, I am envious, not of him, not of Yeshi Dondan for his gift of beauty and holiness, but of her. I want to be held like that, touched, received. And I know that I, who have palpitated 100,000 pulses, have not felt a single one. At last Yeshi Dondan straightens, places the woman's hand upon the bed, and steps back. The interpreter produces a small wooden bowl and 2 sticks. Yeshi Dondan pours a portion of the urine specimen in the bowl, proceeds to whip the liquid with the 2 sticks. This he does for several minutes until a foam is raised. Then, bowing above the bowl, he inhales the odor 3 times. He sets down the bowl and turns to leave. All this while he has not uttered a single word. As he nears the door, the woman raises her head and calls out to him in a voice at once urgent and serene. "Thank you, doctor," she says, and touches with her other hand the place he had held on her wrist, as though to recapture something that had visited there. Yeshi Dondan turns back for a moment to gaze at her, then steps into the corridor. Rounds are at an end. We are seated once more in the conference room. Yeshi Dondan speaks now for the first time in soft Tibetan sounds I've never heard before. He's barely begun when the young interpreter begins to translate, the 2 voices continuing in tandem, a bilingual fugue, the one chasing the other. It's like the chanting of monks. He speaks of winds coursing through the body of the woman, currents that break against barriers, eddying. These vortices are in her blood, he says, the last spendings of an imperfect heart. Between the chambers of her heart, long, long before she was born, a wind had come and blown open a deep gate that must never be opened. Through it charged the full waters of her river as the mountain stream cascades in the springtime, battering, knocking loose the land and flooding her breath. Thus he speaks and is silent. May we now have the diagnosis, a professor asks. The host of these rounds, the man who knows, answers. Congenital heart disease, interventricular septal defect with resultant heart failure. A gateway in the heart, I think, that must not be opened. Through it charge the full waters that flood the breath. So here then is the doctor listening to the sounds of the body to which the rest of us are deaf. He is more than doctor. He is priest. It is said that the truth waits for eyes unclouded by longing. As you become quiet in faith, quiet in what is, quiet in the fullness of the moment, you begin to hear closer and closer to the truth. And in that hearing, or out of that hearing, comes action. Action that happens in harmony with the way of things, as your unique manifestation expresses itself. You become a perfect statement of God made manifest through you. No longer am I trying to imitate anyone else. For a long time I wanted to be like Gandhi, but I'm Dick Albert. And I'm going to have to be a perfect Dick Albert. So I listen from moment to moment, because it changes what you hear. And you can't be afraid of being inconsistent if you're going to listen to truth. If you commit your life to truth and living spirit, you can expect that it's going to be very volatile. You can't expect anything, but it will be volatile. For a long time I clung to models. I must meditate. Now I listen and I do what intuitively I must do. Ramana Maharshi said, I didn't eat. They said I was fasting. You begin to trust yourself. Because for you to find the unique way that you are going to manifest in 1982 in this world which has never been like this before, with this body that is totally unique, with this mind, with this childhood, with this set of experiences, the rule book isn't going to be good enough, no matter how fancy its covers and how august its authors. You've got to listen again. You've got to become the living Bible. And you've got to trust it sooner or later, and we'll all wait. We'll all wait. So maybe nothing has happened in the past 10 years. But as I look about at the audiences I speak to every few nights, and I see who we are, and we represent a much broader spectrum of society than ever before. And I'm not talking down to anybody. I'm saying it just the way I'm seeing it. And there are a lot of people with strawberries and bananas in their hat that are saying, yeah. Because it seems like a lot they're ready to hear. And that, to me, is a very exciting moment. Very exciting moment. Thank you so much for this evening. It's been a joy just sharing this vibration with you. Namaste. Wait 1 second. Don't do anything. I can't resist. We're going to do one song together. It's very short. You got to do it. We do it. It's a 6-part round, okay? And it only has 3 words in it, so don't worry. But you got to attend, and you can't screw up, because if you screw up, it's a mess. Okay, we'll all learn it together first. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, Alleluia, Alleluia. That's the whole business, okay? Jubilation, jubilate means jubilation. Probably pronounce jubilate, but we'll do it jubilate. Deo means Deo, God. Alleluia means hallelujah. Anybody can see that? Let me sing it again so you hear it. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, hallelujah, hallelujah. Even if you can't sing, sing. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, hallelujah, hallelujah. Again. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, hallelujah, hallelujah. Once more, all by yourself. Boy, transpersonal really draws an intelligent clientele, I'll tell you. Yeah. Okay, we'll try and see if you really got it. We'll divide it in half first, okay? So right down the middle, right? Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo. Okay, ready? Here we go. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, hallelujah, 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 Okay, hold it. Great, okay, we're good enough. We passed the test. We're ready for the big moment. Okay, now let's see how we're going to do this. Dividing about, since the balcony's up there, we'll divide about 2/3 of the way back here. And you all are 1, you all are 2, you're all 3, and then 4 is back there, including the corner of the upper of the balcony. 5 is there, including the middle here and up there. And 6 is all over there, okay? You got, everybody knows who they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, you got to do 2 things. You got to sing your part without screwing up. And you've got to put your head up on the ceiling so you can hear the whole thing. See, it's really a delicious thing, okay? So, and it goes jube, 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 jube. We'll do it once more together so we'll make sure, in case you're getting nervous now, okay? Because if you let down your team, the whole thing's ghastly, I'll tell you, okay? Here we go, once more together. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, beautiful. Okay, here we go. Ready? Jube, jube.